Omar Santana-Gomez. I use he, him pronouns here with you with another installment of our Equity in Session video series. We are nearing the end of session. So excited about that. With that, we have updates to give and victories to celebrate, but more on that later. With next week being the last week of session, I wanted to take some time in this video to recap some things we have learned along the way. As we have discussed in previous videos, throughout session, we have had what are known as cutoffs. These are predetermined dates throughout session where bills need to be at a certain stage in the legislative process, or else they risk not advancing in session. With, of course, the end goal being, for all bills, being passage in both chambers. So that includes the House, the Senate, and then after that, onward to the governor's desk for signature. I wanted to recap this process because at this stage, for bills we want to see passed, we are looking for them to look like this and like this. That is because coming up we have the 54th day of session, another cutoff that is the last day to consider opposite chamber bills. At 5 p.m. on this day, bills that have not passed the chamber they are currently in will not be moving further and are considered dead. At this point, we are seeing the conclusion of many bills, for good or bad. But to change up gears also a little bit, the focus this week has been on initiatives. So just a little context on what the initiative process. The initiative process is different from proposed legislation in that instead of legislators enacting laws on behalf of their constituents, the initiative process is the direct power of the voters to enact new or change existing laws. It allows voters to place proposed legislation directly on ballots. Not to mention, while bills are being passed, initiatives are being heard, we also have budgets that are being negotiated. The House, the Senate, and the governor all come out with their proposed budgets and will be working on an agreed upon budget between the three. So we have a lot going on as session nears the end, but I think I'll leave it at that and we'll send it over to Patrick. But before that, just to kind of like give a heads up, the next video with the end of session, we're going to spend a little more time to recap what the end of session looks like and what the future holds with some of the bills that have passed and some of the legislation that we've been working on. But for now, Patrick closes out with some updates and some awesome things to celebrate. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Omar. This is Patrick Stickney, he, him pronouns, for our last bills to watch. As Omar mentioned, as this video is being recorded, we are nearing the final bill cutoff on Friday, March 1st. We're excited to be able to share that a number of the bills we've been highlighting have passed both houses and are now making their way to the governor's desk. These bills have, as Omar showed in his segment, gotten most of their green dots. On Wednesday, February 28th, the Senate passed both House Bill 1541, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act, by a vote of 40-9, and House Bill 2209, celebrating Lunar New Year, by a unanimous vote.
Second and gross second substitute House Bill 1541 on third reading and final passage. Remarks, Senator Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, here in the legislature, we're always creating work groups, task force, advisory committees. But for far too long, there's been large members of our communities that have been left out of those work groups, task force, committees, etc. And that's what this bill is really about, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act, to ensure that folks who have been historically left out, but folks with lived experiences be a part of these work groups to ensure that we're hearing from everybody. They do important work on behalf of our state to advise us, to give us recommendations, and simply, again, just want a seat at the table. And so this is what 1541 will do. It's really going to ensure, again, that we're hearing from folks all throughout our state, all the diversities of our state, whether it's rural, urban, from all over. And so I'd ask for support. And I also just want to, as a sponsor here on this side with the companion bill, I know that my seatmate on the other side of the rotunda, who took my old position, has been working on this for 4 years, and happy to join her in this effort and would ask for support on this really critical bill to ensure that, again, we're hearing from everyone in our state on this important work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, Senator Cooter.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I rise in strong support of this bill. When I think about this bill, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act, I think about a constituent in my district named Brian. Brian is a super active guy, Mr. President. He plays basketball, he plays hockey, he goes for runs with his dog, but he does it all in a wheelchair. And one day we were debating here in Olympia about parking requirements, and I got an email from Brian. And that was a perspective, Mr. President, that we had not considered, that what it's like to be in a van that transports a wheelchair and to not have adequate width in parking spaces for that van, or not to have a designated place for that van. We did not pass that bill, Mr. President, but I can tell you that I listened to Brian, but I think it's really important that we all listen to folks like Brian, and that they do have a seat at the table, because they know more about their situation than we do, and we're going to be making the best informed policy decisions that we possibly can when we include everyone. Urge support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, Senator Rivers?
Thank you, Mr. President. Rising in support. You know, over the past 4 or 5 years, we've taken numerous votes on sexual assault. Many of those came out of the SAFE task force that I was pleased to serve on with the good lady from the 45th. These policies were formed so well because we were able to have the voices of survivors on that committee. So this is already happening, but I think about how much more powerful it would be if we made this a priority for everything that we do to make sure that no one accidentally gets left behind. Urging yes vote.
Mr. President, there are 40 ayes, 9 nays.
Having received a constitutional majority, second and gross, second substitute House Bill 1541 is declared passed. The title of the bill will be the title of the act.
And the House has passed Senate Bill 6127, increasing access to HIV prevention medication or therapies, Senate Bill 5963, implementing recommendations from the 2022 STI and Hepatitis B Legislative Advisory Group, and Senate Bill 5427 on establishing a reporting hotline and tracking hate crimes and bias incidents. As we're currently recording House Bill 2230, the Economic Security for All Grant Program, Senate Bill 5955 regarding equity in large port districts, and Senate Bill 5462 promoting inclusive learning standards and instructional materials have not yet received a vote. We'll update you on what happened to those bills in our final video, roughly 2 weeks from now. So that's all we have for today. Check in soon for our last equity in session this year.